Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm joined today by our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going, Bill?
It's going great, thank you.
So today I'm going to start out talking a little bit about General Motors. We don't talk about GM much ever since they kind of dropped the bolt, brought back the bolt, but whatever they've been trying to do. But this is so we're seeing all this news about Tesla and their first quarter sales. The world is falling, EVs are collapsing.
Right.
This is something interesting. GM reported a 1.5% drop in the first quarter of US vehicle sales, only selling 594,000 units. Despite this, the company's retail sales showed resilience, increasing by 6%. So this was interesting. So I'm assuming that the rest was made up overseas. And I'll get into this in a minute. There was a 22.9% fall in fleet customer sales by GM. Now, here's something interesting. Buick went up 16.4%. Now, what do we sometimes talk about? What's Buick doing right now that nobody seems to know about except you and I? They're selling EVs in China.
Yep.
And
they're really nice looking, too.
Yes, they are. They don't sell in the United States, but they do sell them in China. Yeah. Cadillac and Chevy saw decreases. EV sales remained low with only 16,000 units sold. But in slightly better news for the company, they announced the final specs for the 2024 Silverado EV First Edition RST, priced at only $94,500. It boasts 754 horsepower, 785 foot-pounds of torque. That ought to be able to tow about 20,000 pounds.
Yeah, you can pull a locomotive with that.
Yeah, and an impressive 440 miles of range. Now, it has 350 kilowatt DC fast charging, four-wheel steering for improved maneuverability. Now, recently I was watching some competitions between the Cybertruck, the F-150 Lightning, the Chevy Silverado EV, and somebody else's truck. I can't remember. There was another, it might have been a Rivian truck. The winner in towing, far and away, was the Chevy Silverado. Now, I've never been a big Chevy fan. Okay, I've always been a big Ford guy, and I really, I've gotten to become a big Tesla fan. But it's really interesting to think that they have somehow figured out a way to deliver range while towing better than the other companies.
Well, let's put an Airstream 24-foot, 30-foot Airstream behind it and see what it does. Yeah. There's the test.
Yes. So here's another little piece. Toyota continues to advance its electrified vehicle strategy. Now, we all hear how Toyota is bailing on EVs. Toyota currently has 26 electrified options across the Toyota and Lexus brands. Now, in the United States, they only have one. It's the Busy Forks. Okay. Yeah. But they have 26 across the rest of the world.
Electrified. Let's clarify that is not necessarily a pure battery electric. That's probably in all likelihood a bunch of different hybrids across a wider spectrum of their lineup.
They intend to, by 2025, to produce 600,000 electric vehicles, and intend to sell
electrified.
It just says EV.
Yeah,
1.5 million by 26. This includes launching 10 new all-electric models in various segments.
Well, good for them. It's about time.
Yes. Yeah, but it's interesting how we hear different numbers. Let's see. Here's Ford's quarter one. Their hybrid sales jumped, so did their ICE vehicles. Ford reported a 6.8% increase in first quarter U.S. sales, driven by pickups, crossovers, and hybrids, reaching 508,000 units. Benefiting from increased production, sales of the compact Maverick surged 82% to 39,000 units.
Yeah, nice.
That's one that I'm surprised they don't have an all EV version of the Maverick, and I'm hoping they'll do that soon.
Just again, for history perspective, there was at one time an all-electric S10. That was part of their original. Yeah, that was part of their original California mandate period starting in 1998, and they did have an all-electric S10.
Okay. Well, Ford's traditional SUVs also posted record sales, indicating continued robust demand for ICE vehicles. So, that's just a little bit of different
But I've
news.
been thinking about this thing, with all this emphasis on people saying, well, they're not selling battery AVs, but they are selling hybrids. And I got, you know what? I'm not necessarily all that upset about that. I mean, yeah, they're still using gas. It's still internal combustion engine. You still got all the crap you got to deal with, from catalytic converters that are being stolen, when you park it on the street, or, oil changes every few thousand miles, and, and stuff dripping down on your driveway and in your garage and getting into the water, all of those issues. But people are beginning to think more in terms of efficiency and using the gasoline more practically and efficiently than they are with this great, not thinking a thing about, how much gas is this thing consuming? It's beginning to shift. And I'm encouraged by that, because look, it took me 20 years nearly to get to an all electric car. I drove hybrids. So,
Right.
hey, we'll get there. I think we're starting to see that happening. So good on the hybrids.
I saw something in the Toyota Camry for next year. That's the Camry hybrid. It's going to have a 55 mile per gallon highway on a hybrid.
Yeah, that's not all that. I mean,
but considering the size of the Camry, it's not a little car like the Prius. So I'm just saying.
I never considered the Prius a little car, but then again, it's parked next to my Fiat,
right?
Which is a little car,
right?
No, but I'm good. Hey, more power to them. Now, when they make it the Camry Premier, or whatever name they want to give it, like the Prius Prime, to where it's a plug-in hybrid, then I'll get more excited about it.
No, I understand. I'm just saying that's coming a long ways. I mean, and I've told you, I've seen technology that's been patented and been tested in labs that hasn't been put on cars that may, that could potentially double that range.
Yeah.
And, you start doing that, you start talking, especially when you talk about emissions and pollution, and you keep having that, you have the pollution from where it was in this hybrid. If you have it again in this plug-in hybrid tech that I see coming, down the highway, you start really making some changes, whether people completely switch to full battery electric vehicles or not.
Eventually they will, because the economics will drive it. And now it might.
Well, we know that
it might not happen within the Biden time frame, that they've set out, but it'll happen.
No, well, we reported on everything from like 5-minute charging.
Yeah.
Because the technology exists, the cars can't handle it yet. But another 5 years will, they'll be making more cars. I mean, you look at some of the original EVs. If you went to a fast charger, it still takes 40 minutes to charge the damn thing, and that's pretty slow. But if you look at some of the technology that's coming out, it'd be a matter of whether they can make that, by making enough of it, they can make it affordable. But we're seeing battery prices crash, and as battery prices keep crashing, it's just going to keep making the cars cheaper and cheaper.
Let's not use the word crash.
Yes, I get it. I get it.
As they rapidly descend to more affordable levels.
Yeah. So
it's like when I worked in the airline industry, we never threw bags when we loaded and unloaded bags off the airplane. We placed the bags.
Right. I get it. We're placing them aggressively.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So there was a story in USA Today: electric car EV sales slump. What is the consumer gap? They're trying to express that the car makers aren't making what people are out there wanting EVs, but they're not selling what they might want. And I thought this was different in that, customers looking, 47% want one for less than $40,000, and 22% are looking for an EV below $30,000.
Yeah.
Currently, there's only 4 EVs available in the United States below $40,000, and the average transaction price was 61,700. Now, I don't know if they're factoring Tesla into these numbers, but Model 3 would have fit in there as well on the low end.
Yeah, there was a guy that posted, which I thought was interesting. He says, we're talking about a Tesla for under $25,000, right?
Right.
We're looking forward to that. He says they already exist. They're called a used Model Y.
Yeah,
that's an interesting way to look at it.
well, I was.
Go ahead.
Well, we were talking earlier before we got on the show. We were talking about our friend Alex Lawrence from EV Auto out in Utah, who's an EV only used car dealer, and he was showing all of these Tesla Model 3 long ranges he has on the lot that just came in. They're just under $19,000 after the $4,000 rebate.
Hey, I'm buying an airline ticket. Sorry.
Yeah, and he really points out some unique cars on his show, but that's really getting cheap. Now, these Model 3 long ranges all had about 90,000 miles on them.
No.
But, I've seen some, and I'm going to show a little bit later. Somebody was reporting on Facebook yesterday how they just broke 300,000 miles on their original battery, and they've had less than 10% degradation in those 300,000 miles.
Yeah, that's great.
On a Model 3, a 2020 Model 3 long range.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so one of the things is a lot of the battery degradation was bigger when you were talking about the 2012s, 2016s, and 19s. And it's just like Chevy Bolts had some problems with fires, 2020 and older. But since then, since 21 and on, they got rid of that problem.
Yep.
And, so you hear all this stuff over and over again, but people don't realize, EVs. What was the first electric cars that came out in the 90s?
Oh, the first one, first commercial ones?
Yeah, commercial ones. I mean, not obviously the ones in 1830.
No. The ones that came out because of, again, we come back to the California, ZEV mandate, came out in the 1998, 1999 timeframe. All of them, most of them starting with lead acid batteries because that was there. And then within that 4 or 5 year period of time, they all began to switch over to nickel metal hydride. And lithium batteries in the form of those laptops, the ones they put in the AC propulsion T0, those were the nickel metal hydride was state of the art at the time. And it would take a while for the lithium technology to it would take a good decade before it finally would catch up. And the guys over at Tesla decided, hey, if they could do it with the T0, we'll do it in the in our Roadster. So
we were talking before the show because Alex had pointed out to me on his own, on a video he had done about how he had this Cadillac ELR plug-in hybrid on his lot, and he sold it right away. It's already gone. Yeah. But so I want to do a little checking on this because I was not familiar with this car. And mind you, folks, we're showing a 2014 plug-in hybrid. Now, this was a $76,000 car in 2014. This would be a $100,000 car today if they still made it. Okay. Right. Now, these are just outright beautiful cars.
Oh, there's the red one. That's the one I saw. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the one I saw. That's gorgeous.
Let's see how big I can make this. I don't know if I can enlarge this any, but
for our listeners out there, coincidentally, I started. Something brought that to my attention. I started looking for these cars because I'm thinking about, well, how can I sort of get away from owning two cars, a hybrid and an all electric, and yet still drive electric?
And they're listening to Metallica on there.
Yeah. And so we just found here within the same car.
Yeah. So it just happened that Bill and I had both been looking at this. So, but somebody else had brought it to my attention, but it has a 37-mile battery range, and they get the equivalent of about 38 miles per gallon
in hybrid.
And in hybrid mode. But for a car that is essentially a say $90,000 equivalent car in today's dollars. Here's what's really cool about this. So these show these prices ranging anywhere from $14,000 to $24,000.
Yep.
Because they're plug-in hybrids and they're used, they're all eligible if you make under $150,000 a year for a $4,000 federal tax credit.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of these, this one down here that's 14, I noticed, I looked at it and I think it just showed that it had just taken a $4,000 price drop. So I'm pretty sure if it has that on the notes, a couple of them, it looked like they'd already factored in the $4,000 price or the $4,000 drop in the price. Yeah. The other one's not.
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying it's crazy. Like this one here, this one wasn't here yesterday, or was it? Let's just see if it shows.
Yeah. By the way,
price drops.
These are upgraded Chevrolet Volts, basically.
Yes.
But boy, are they good looking.
Yeah, they are beautiful cars. And, you know, they're Cadillacs, all that. And if you wanted a great deal on something, I don't know any of these car dealers. I'm not trying to advocate for any of these folks, but it's just, you know, with the $4,000 tax credit, it's just a pretty amazing deal. That's something like that.
You can drive electric and still have the gas range that you would need to go, you know, visit your grandparents, you know, on the other side of Iowa or whatever.
Yeah. And since most of the guts are a Chevy Volt, you're probably not going to have crazy expensive cost to repair one of these.
The stipulation with the Volt, now I'm assuming it's probably the same with the ELR, is that you do need to burn premium gasoline in them. At least those are the early versions. So you're going to pay a little bit more for the gasoline. But if if you're like most people, you don't drive more than 30, 40 miles in a day anyway, and that's all easily within the electric range. In fact, GM has set up a sensor in the car to turn the car on at times just to get rid of the gasoline in it. So that the target market for Cadillac cars has typically always been people over 60. And so what I'm saying is these cars are probably fairly lightly driven. I would imagine, yeah.
So they probably haven't had a whole lot of hard miles on them either.
Yeah, it could be a grandma out there who likes to, lead foot it. You never know.
It's not like some of the high mileage Hertz cars that were all being used for Uber and delivery services. Yeah. So I just throwing that out there. I just thought that was really kind of shocking to see that. And what we were talking about, those Tesla long ranges, I guess they're about $23,000 to cut down to 19. So it just makes
coming back to the comment about people and what people want are these cars under 40,000 and and another percentage wanting them under 30,000 and so on. I keep coming back to the old statement about engineering. You can have it fast, you can have it good, and you can have it affordable, but you can't have all three.
We use the same talk in construction. You can either have, or remodeling, you have high quality, low price, or quickly done. Right. You can choose you might get lucky and get two of the three, but it's impossible to get all three. Three is not possible. It mathematically doesn't make sense. Yeah. But you're unlikely to really get more than one of the three. Yeah. So if you pay for quality work, you're not getting the low price, and you're probably not getting it done that fast either. Yeah. Yeah. But you'll have good work done. But I'm just saying there's a lot of truth to that. But you might be able to get two of the three in a certain situation. Yeah. But anyways, so while the sky is falling on EV sales, my next, yes. Well, that's what I keep hearing. I keep hearing that. And
I know. So I come across them, every day as I put out, 60 to 70 to 80 to more than 100 stories a day. It's just.
All right. So we're going to have to take some of this with a grain of salt. Okay. Ford takes second in the US EV market after sales climb 86% as lower prices take effect. Now there's a Mustang Mach-E
Mm-hmm.
And so their
Which
EV
is
sales,
selling gangbusters.
yeah, they're up 86% over last year.
Yep.
And so they're now saying they're second behind Tesla in the US EV market. Now I don't know if so Hyundai was second. So I don't know if they're separating out Hyundai and Kia, because
Right.
Hyundai owns Kia
Kia.
and Genesis.
Yeah.
And so they own those other brands. I don't know if they're segmenting them
The
out
other two of
or
which
not.
sell electric cars. So they all three of their units are into the EVs. So.
Right. So the F-150 Lightning is remained America's best-selling pickup with 7,700 units sold, topping the Rivian R1T. Mustang Mach-E sales surged 77% with 9,500 sold. It was the second best-selling electric SUV behind the Tesla Model Y.
Mm.
That's pretty impressive.
Now, the
Let's see.
reason for that, it's speculated, is because they cut the price on the Mustang. And as soon as they cut the price, they couldn't keep them in the showroom.
Yeah, they cut prices by $8,100.
Yeah.
So here's where we're at now on the Mach-E. Rear-wheel drive, some of them are available just under $40,000. But what's the expense? Oh, the premium rear-wheel drive extended range dropped $8,100. That's a
Yeah.
pretty big.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big change in price. And in fact, when you're looking at this, it would make sense to buy one of these over, selecting one of the cheaper ones. Especially, you really want all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Anyways, because that's one of the big advantages that EVs have, is how sure-footed they are in bad weather. Of course, we live in snow country. If you lived in Arizona, where it doesn't rain, it doesn't snow very often, you're really not that worried probably about traction like we are.
Unless you go up to Flagstaff.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But it's interesting kind of to see that. So they've definitely lowered the price, because one of the things we talk about sometimes is for these American manufacturers, they go through the dealership model. So even though it might say they make a $39,000 version, you go to the dealership, it's $5,000 to $10,000 more.
Mm-hmm.
And because you got $3,000 for undercoating and $1,500 for delivery, and something for tinted windows and all this other stuff, undercoat spraying, which God knows what that is. But anyways, I thought that was good to see. Toyota's EV sales continue lagging in the US as Hyundai and Kia plow ahead. So Toyota EV sales were up 9% in the first 3 months of 24, but that only amounted to 1,900 Toyota electric vehicles, which is just a tiny amount. Figures less than 2,000 versus 486,000 total units they sold in the United States for gas and the other. But that's only one car. It was the Busy Forks.
Mm-hmm.
And you can really get good deals on the Busy Forks, because it's about a $50,000 vehicle new, but 1 year old with less than 5,000 miles, you can pick them up for about 35. So that's another one.
You're keeping closer tab on it than I am.
I've been watching this. The Subaru Solterra is the same as the Busy Forks.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same car, and it's also got about the same instant depreciation. But I think some of that is people have probably gotten rebates. They probably leased it, got the $7,500 rebate by leasing it, and then decided to get rid of it. The Busy Forks doesn't have exceptional range. I think it only has like a 220-mile range or something like that, but you have a Fiat. I mean, you're familiar with how to drive an EV that doesn't have massive range.
And of course, if you drive, like I do, most of it, your driving is under 35 miles an hour around town here. But you on occasion get up to getting on the interstate and, having to keep up with other traffic is 70 miles an hour. That impacts your range, So it is with an electric car, well, even with a gas car, it's just not as noticeable. But with an electric car, how fast you drive it and when and where you drive it does impact how far it goes. But that being said, my car is EPA rated 84 miles. It's not 200. It's not Woe that I wish it were, but it's not. So it's just, it's a urban city car, and that's what it was designed and meant to be.
Oh, Lexus also sold 1,600 of the RZ EV in the first quarter. Now, Toyota promotes electrified vehicle sales, including hybrids, surged 61% in March. It was 36.4% of their overall sales volume. So that's, more than a third of Toyota's sales are
Hybrids,
some type of,
basically.
yeah, it's basically hybrids with a few EVs thrown in there. There's a picture of the Busy Forks, which I think they look nice. There's nothing wrong with the look on it. It's just, it's not, it just doesn't get pushed that hard.
Yeah.
So,
and your dog agrees as well.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think they've detected a threat.
We keep hoping for more from Toyota because they were leaders. I mean, they blew the competition away in 1997, and I was there when it happened, introducing the Prius. I had a GM engineer literally tell me, wow, they've opened their kimono to us on that one, didn't they? This was 12 days after the car was introduced in Japan, the Prius, original Prius. So, we had such high expectations, and they kind of stuck with, resting. I don't want to be hard on, but they've been resting on their laurels. I mean, they've given stabs over time at electric cars, battery electrics, and just never pursued it. And now they keep waiting for their solid state battery technology to come, and then they're going to rule the world.
Well, the problem you get, the problem you get is the dealer model just doesn't work real well for EVs when they're only, say, 10% of the cars on a lot versus the salespeople all understand the gas cars. They don't necessarily understand the EVs, and the customers don't understand them. And you hear this people all the time. It's like, I went looking to buy an EV. I went to Ford. I went to GM. I was so turned off by the dealers. And then I went to one of the Tesla showrooms, and it was such a simple thing, no hassles, and it was just so easy to order the Tesla and buy it. And I understand why people didn't want to make it legal for Tesla to sell the way it sells, because it really is hurting the dealer model. And then you look at somebody who has EV only used car dealerships, they sell through their EVs pretty fast, but people go there knowing that the salespeople they talk to understand EVs and that they're only going to be looking at EVs. Now, the folks I know that have those places, they also sell plug-in hybrids. So they do a little bit of both. Right. They do hybrids, or they do plug-in hybrids, and they do full EVs. By the way, I was going to tell you, I saw my first Hummer EV here in Omaha a couple days ago.
Really?
Yeah, and I had to go looking around it. So they're not really, they still have a traditional Hummer grill. So you really can't tell that it's an EV at all. So I had to go look because it says HEV in small letters on the side. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's a Hummer EV. And so I went walking around it just to see. And it's like, sure enough, it was. I mean.
Okay. Well, first of all, whoever bought it, thank you for going electric. We appreciate
with your 205 kilowatt hour battery.
And enjoy it, and you're helping justify General Motors' investment in more affordable EVs.
Right.
So thank you for doing that. So,
no, by the way, Yogi asked me if we should change the banner on EV World to say Apple by Aptera and just have that kind of as our branding.
No, we should have a little scroller, have him put a little scroller thing across there. Apple, please. What they're doing now is Apple, they've gotten out of the electric car market. Now they're looking at personalized robots, and that's what their engineers are working on. So they shifted the guys at Titan over to start, building personalized robots. That'll be interesting.
I've started a lot of conversations on LinkedIn and other places about the whole Aptera needs to be bought by Apple, and people can just see that the Apple Aptera seems like
It's
it really does
perfect.
look like an Apple product.
Come on.
Yeah,
I got to imagine that Steve and, and the guys have thought about this. I mean, obviously it's your baby. They have struggled with this thing for over, more than a decade at least.
right.
And, and, it's like EV World. I don't want to give up EV World, because it's my baby. But, at some point it makes sense to, figure out a way if you're going to make it grow, you got to, adopt some new approaches and things. And, it just seems to me so much to fit with the ethos of, an Apple ethos. They just got their, God, what do they call that thing? Their Ben C. Well, they just yesterday, they got delivered a great big packing crate in which is located the whichever version, it's the P1 version or something like that, is the chassis, and is there, well, I shouldn't say chassis, it's the body of the vehicle that's going to be used for checking all the wiring connections and putting all that type of thing in. So they're getting closer and closer here to actually producing that car. But they could really ramp things up if they could do a deal with Apple and Foxconn. There would be a killer.
Well, anyways, we'll move on just to be timely. So it's interesting. That's kind of been our pet thing lately is, who needs to buy who? And I got a couple of others to discuss today. So this one here, I thought I should mention. So somebody posted their Tesla Model 3 long range. It's a 2020 Model 3 long range, has 300,000 miles and still gets 270 miles per full charge. And crossed that point today, 300,000 miles, no major issues or repairs, original battery, motors, and brakes. Original brakes at 300,000 miles.
Yeah, but how many tires has he gone through?
He says 3 or 4 sets. And that on 300,000 miles, that's not a whole lot of sets of tires.
No,
so much. Not when we figured that one article that said that EV tire particulates, well, we figure it was every 4,000 miles, or maybe
miles, and you would be down to the rims.
Yeah, yeah. So he's replaced the charge port door, the trunk release button on the rear, 3 or 4 sets of tires, wiper blades once, 3 windshields, and that's it. Currently, max range hovers around 285 to 275. It was 315 miles when he bought it new.
Now, did Tesla give him that 300K logo to go on the car, or he have that made? I wonder.
I don't know. I suspect they probably sent him that.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yes, and I thought that was.
But three windshields.
3 windshields. Well, it's one every 100,000 miles. That doesn't really seem unrealistic.
It seems like that's, he's got some country roads there he's traveling.
Well, I get rock chips hitting me all the time, so I don't. I can just go get them patched, but you just never know. If one spiders, what do you do? Let's see. So I had this article come to me from MarketBeat, and I thought this was really unusual. It says Canoe bites the dust. Mullen Automotive is a better bet. And I'm like, oh God, Bill's not going to want to hear this.
I haven't seen them bite. Yeah, they're like most startups. They're struggling, right? But now they're not biting the dust. Not yet.
I don't think they are. I don't think they are either. But I just found it really fascinating for them to say this. The shares fell more than 25%. The news was that the CEO spent twice as much money on flying and private jets as the company had in revenue.
Well, it's time to fire that guy's ass. And can I say that?
It was his own private jet, and he just charged them like 1.7 million for flying it around for the year, and the company only had $850,000 in revenues, and so that was kind of wild. Canoe ramps production, but it's not enough. Well, this is one of those companies that's like, well, who should buy Canoe? Should it be GM or should it be Stellantis? The thing is, I saw what Stellantis did to Jeep, and I'm just not impressed.
Yeah.
You know,
I
so
don't know.
GM
Of course,
would
they've
be a
got the
good
blue,
Canoe partner.
what is it, blue dot. I think yeah, this actually might fit with that. So,
Because we
not
need
blue dot. What do they call
consolidation.
that?
Mullen needs better leadership, and
Yeah, they're not really a manufacturer. They're a financial entity that's
Mullen
dabbling
has
in
been.
it.
They've been acquiring assets. They've acquired battery making. They've acquired Bollinger Motors, electric last mile solutions. They bought a Hummer plant from GM. They've done a few interesting things where they've acquired a whole lot of assets, but
They're ramping up something.
they keep doing a lot of weirdness. And they were one of the companies that was really hurt by the naked short sale attacks, which have been really rampant in the EV and tech space. And this is funny. It says Mullen's results in Q1 are promising. Deliveries were up 660%. Well, they probably delivered one vehicle in the quarter. For this year, they delivered 7. Okay,
Which you mentioned the GM Hummer, right? And I saw this headline that General Motors electric vehicle sales have increased 8,000%. It was like 8,300 and something or another percent. Huh?
Yeah. And more news about how electric vehicle sales are plummeting and nobody wants them anymore. Hyundai US EV sales doubled in March. So here's another decline in sales. By going up, they went from, let me see, Q1 up 2% year over. This was total vehicle sales. We're up 2%, but they doubled. They were 120. They were up 129% in EVs.
Yeah. Oh, we should extend a congratulations to Rivian because they have produced their 100,000th vehicle. So
that's pretty impressive. I would not have guessed that they would have produced that many so far. Yep. They're all coming along. It's whether they can survive. The Rivian's one I think Ford should acquire. I think they should acquire them before they become too valuable. Right now, their Rivian would be a bargain price to jump in.
I think Ford has an interest in them.
Oh, do they? I mean, I know Amazon does.
It's a small, and I think they reduced it, but I think they do have a small financial stake in them. And in transparency, I have a small stake in them, about $400.
Right. Hey, it's something. You can go to the annual shareholders meeting and vote.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the EV revolution has passed a major tipping point. 31 countries, and this is supposed to be an indicator of when technology. 32 countries?
Now 32. Yep.
Yeah. So 32 countries have passed 5% of sales of EVs versus gas. And this is something called the S curve. And basically what it is saying that once you pass that 5% point, then all of a sudden things start to really turn into a landslide and create adoption. And the United States has passed this already. And if we look at the Scandinavian countries, they were at around 5% 10 years ago. And now they're at 90%.
I think I saw there's a headline that I posted either yesterday or today that Sweden, basically, I think within the next couple of years, I'll have to go back and look it up again, but Sweden is basically shifting completely away from gas over to EVs, and it's happening at a very rapid clip.
I've seen some very interesting things that were showing that as EVs increased, diesel cars are plummeting at a faster rate than EVs are growing.
Yeah.
And so EVs look like they're taking a significant chunk out of the diesel automobiles.
Yeah. And of course,
So
most of those were sold in Europe just simply because of the high fuel prices over there.
right, and I get it. So the way this S curve works is if once you hit 5%, you should hit 25% within 4 years.
Wow.
And if you look at, let's say you took California, California is at about 25% this year, and it was
Mhm.
probably at about 5% 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And, to put it into perspective. So it's really interesting to see, right now, there's basically two metrics that electric vehicles don't compete with gas vehicles quite as well. One is price, and the other one is road trips. Okay.
Mhm.
By every other metric, EVs are
They're
superior. They're safer,
they're way
they're
better.
faster, they're cheaper to operate. The idea of not having to fuel it out in the elements at a gas station, there's all these things to it. I was with a friend we were in Arizona, and he borrowed a relative's Acura SUV, and we
Mhm.
got out of it at a place going in to eat. It's like, hey, you didn't turn the engine off. Because I forgot it. It was like my Model X, it just shuts off. I don't have to do anything with lock the
Yeah.
car, nothing. It's just when I walk away, it does all that for me.
Yeah.
And he had kind of forgotten how to drive a gas car because he'd had, you know, it's more like flying a spaceship, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that where it kind of does it for you. So I just it's an interesting experience. And those two metrics, when we get that 5-minute charging, the road trip thing's completely a thing of the past.
Yep.
And we're really starting to hit that point where EVs can be made and sold as cheaper than gas cars. Because you look at BYD is going to really put the hurt on the Toyota Corolla worldwide with the
Yeah.
Seagull.
Yeah.
And we had this Changan something or other, was $5,000. I mean, it's obviously not the car for most people,
No.
but it's just another interesting
But
concept to see.
they keep coming up. You look at the Chinese cars, and they keep coming up with some really, I mean, they're practical little Chinese, for that market, but they're cute, they're cheap. One thing I wanted to mention, and with respect to Rivian, they were awarded, I think, the #1 IAH award for safety. And that kind of brought to mind, if you remember a month or two ago, the University of Nebraska and Lincoln conduct these road tests where they wanted to see what EVs would do when they went through a road barrier. We've got those
I
things.
saw that.
You saw that. Okay. And you know what? Everybody's saying, "Oh my God, the things are too heavy, and we ought to reduce their weight." Well, there's something to be said about that. But the thing that I thought, this thing went through the road barrier, it went through and over a concrete barrier and almost went over the second barrier. And you look at the car, there was almost no, I mean, relatively almost no damage. And you know what my thought was?
The driver would have lived.
That's the car I want to be riding in.
I've known a couple of people. I've known a couple of people that have been in fairly bad accidents that they should not have walked away from if they'd been in a gas car, and they were in Teslas. And the Tesla, the design of the chassis absorbs something like 85% of the impact. And
the Rivians have surpassed it. And you can see that in that test. Yep.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's amazing, and people don't want to acknowledge this. Tesla drivers are not the best drivers, but I think a lot of that, it has to do with the fact that they're mostly men, and men drive on average 3 times as much as women do. And so what happens is you have this pool, and guys are more likely to drive fast too. And the Teslas are very fast cars. People, it's hard.
Testosterone.
Yes, I get it. And, it's really easy to run into something, but Tesla drivers have the highest incident rate of all drivers. and it's particular to that brand,
Yeah.
but they don't have bad outcomes. And there was talking about somebody hit a Tesla Cybertruck and their car got demolished, and the Cybertruck was barely scratched.
Yeah.
And
you can see why. I mean, my
right,
God.
I get it. But I'm just saying they're very, very safe.
Bullets spout off. This guy bought one, right? And he's a gun enthusiast.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a whole collection of different kinds of guns. And I think it took a 50 caliber sniper rifle.
Yeah, he shot with a Barrett 50.
Yeah, to penetrate. And all the others, the Tommy gun and everything else just dented and, dropped off. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That Barrett 50 is classified as an anti-vehicle.
Oh, yeah. I could see
rifle.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's I've heard comments like 50 cal gunners aren't supposed to just shoot at people. They're supposed to destroy
the things they're riding in. Yeah.
Things, or if somebody's behind cover, they use it to destroy the cover.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you watch all these, police dramas and things, and these guys are, shooting at the criminals and things, and you're thinking, oh, come on now. The bullets are really going through that door. They're not sparking off of it.
Right. No, it is. It is a bit unrealistic.
That wouldn't be true if they took cover behind a cyber
Tesla. Right.
Yeah.
It is interesting to see that. Anyways, well, good show today, Bill. And
it's
folks,
been a lot of fun. We didn't get to talk about the Omaha event that I went to the other day here, but we'll save that for another time. So.
Okay, great. Well, folks, make sure to follow us if you're watching from Twitter. I see we got lots of Twitter followers today.
Thank you.
Anyways, and folks, thanks for watching, and we'll see y'all next week.